Everyone. I'm just making this live real quick. It's kind of more like a topic talk. All right, we're doing like a topic talk today. All right. I did a little research on some information I thought was pretty cool. You know what I mean? So today I'm going to talk about the Human Connectome project, and I found this information from a SciPost article actually. Now SciPost, they've been putting up some pretty good articles, you know what I mean? I find them pretty intriguing, you know what I mean, because I'm into psychology. But there's a term that I never heard before that I thought was pretty interesting, and I was thinking to myself, well, it's amazing how, you know, these psychologists or these scientists, like, they get all this information about people and behavioral patterns and how they can kind of just categorize people into you know, whatever terms that Machiavellianism. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I'll try it one more time. It's Machiavellianism. And so we're going to kind of get into, you know, what the definition of that is. And, you know, I'm going to kind of bring it all together. You know what I mean? So the Human Connectome project. It has a lot to do with brain circuits to behavioral studies and patterns. And, you know, now researchers, you know, they can talk about how, you know, they gather 150 people, you know, whatever amount, into a room, you know, and ask them a bunch of questions, and then they can kind of determine their hypothesis or come up with whatever theoretical study they want, you know. But at the end of the day, after looking at what's going on and just, you know, what's going on in our world right now, you know, I don't want to get into detail or whatever. You know, basically, I'm going to run down what's going on, and I'm kind of going to give my own little take on why I think it's a completely invalid study, yo. Completely invalid study research. If you look deeper into these studies, you will see that sometimes even on, well, it's Wikipedia, so you never know. They actually confirm how a lot of these studies are done illegally and covertly, which I completely agree with, you know. So it's funded by the MHMR. All right, for those of you who don't know, that's a mental health, my resources, you know what I mean, mental resource, and the National Institute of Health. Okay, so it's a research team, you know what I mean, and they do studies on specific people around the world. Okay, so this is gonna bring everything together. A lot of, you know, you have individuals coming out with videos talking about the term gang stalking. That's a term in previous videos that I've deleted that I used, but I'm going to kind of bring this all together and kind of just give my take on it. But we're looking at the Human Connectome project here, all right? And basically what it is, yo, it's an analysis of human visualization. So you got a research team that pretty much study nanotechnology, neuroscience community, brain circuits of behavioral studies, you know what I mean? And obviously it's going to get much more deeper. Communication, more specifically just irregular communication, you know what I mean? If you happen to be like a different person, the way your demeanor comes off. It's about psychology, but they incorporate technology and science into it, you know? And they get real deep with it, even with speech. You know what I mean? If y'all can't tell, I got a lisp, you know what I mean? So just like little stuff like that. Hand functions, using the hand, you know what I mean? So, and basically, you know, it's data stealth capture of these specific individuals, these, let's call it participants. But the thing is, yo, and that's when I'm going to get down to the Machiavellianism and the definition of that, that they're kind of categorizing people who perhaps have a, how do I put it? They call it like a personality disorder. They try to correlate it with narcissism. So we're going to get into that. But where I'm coming from on this video is trying to map out how it is that they come up with their data. How it is that they can analyze, well, how do they know that a person is acting that way? So what I'm trying to say is that research teams, specific people, participants within the research team, and it, you know, it's a national research that they do these participants in, because obviously specific individuals that are being chosen And I hate to say it, I don't want to say like a human lab rat, but you know what I mean? This is where I'm going to kind of come from in terms of why I don't think their analysis, their study research isn't really valid. Especially if the individuals who know they're being tested on, well, they're aware of it. So whatever, how do I put it? Whatever reaction to whatever engagement within the community that the human test subject gives, it's invalid. Because the test subject, when you're a test subject, do you know you're being tested or not? You know what I mean? Or why you're being tested? You know what I mean? Usually test subjects, you know what I mean? If you're being experimented on, sometimes you get like a incentive out of it. You know what I'm saying? But not exactly with the way they're coming with. At least not the way I think. Because when it comes to the Human Connectome project, we're talking about data stealth capture, medical imaging within the individual. And we're also talking about kind of like schizophrenia. You know what I mean? That's kind of where they're coming with this too. So in order for these individuals, the NiH and the MHMR, you know what I mean? Whoever's funding it. And there's a bunch of other centers that could possibly be going along with that as well to help out with the research. So I wouldn't doubt it if the military was involved. You know, the Air Force, cybersecurity, Homeland Security, you know what I mean? And utilizing nanotechnology to kind of see the simulation of someone's brain. If someone's brain isn't wired in a way where they're simulating and doing the same thing every day, usually these individuals could perhaps be the ones that are going to get tested on. Now, that's where the part comes in where I believe it's invalid, because obviously in order for a study to work, you wouldn't want the test subject to know that they're being tested on, because if they knew, then they're already going to pre-plan their actions or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of these tests, I don't believe them to be done accurately. Because if we're looking at it that way, and that's the way a real test is going to get the results you want, then you're going to have to you're going to have to do it in a way where, you know, it could possibly be illegal. Because other than that, I don't really see how you can have access to someone's brain and come up with terms called Machiavellianism. But I'm going to finish up here with the Human Connectome project. It's basically a bioscience study. It's a national research project, and it can go pretty deep. It can even reach situations where you're monitoring someone's sexual habits, perversion behavior. And it's somewhat just like a whole research team that has like an infatuation on a specific individual that's being tested on. You know what I mean? So where I'm coming from and why, you know, I find this interesting is because, you know, well, what about the test subject? You know what I mean? Or why are they be chosen? Or you know what I mean? What about the reaction they give? You know what I mean? So the Human Connectome project, and you know, correlating it with Machiavellianism, which is a term to describe someone's personality disorder. I find it intriguing with how they come up with the information to do this. You know what I mean? So this is where we're gonna kind of get into how spyware tracking within the brain tracking, you know. But in terms of the way the individual who's being tested on, obviously he's gonna find it as harassment. You know, obviously the research team, they have to indirectly, at least this is the way I'm looking at it, indirectly kind of allow the test subject to know that they're participating in, we'll call it, I'm not going to call it gang stalking anymore. I'll call it oriented engagement. Oriented engagement is what I'll call it. But basically, yeah, to bring it to a whole, with this whole Human Connectome project, you know what I mean? It's basically just a wide study on specific individuals. This is why you'll have individuals speak about, you know, what they're talking about right now, you know, surveillance, showing surveillance. And where I'm coming from this is just how SciPost, because this is where I get most of this information. I don't know if people have heard of the website that posts the articles, SciPost. And they'll have a bunch of psychology terms there to describe like the behavior, you know, the behavior of people. But basically, you know what I mean? It's like present day diagnostics, pretty much. You know what I mean? Nanotechnology. The the ability to kind of map out whatever, perhaps even whatever's in a person's body, and what makes that person think that way. Sensor detecting is what nanotechnology is. Yeah. So it's a correlation of all of that. It's an analysis of human visualization. Where I'm coming from this is, you know what I mean? If people are really out here being tested like lab rats, you know what I mean? And they're just doing it to them with no, you know what I mean? They didn't get any say in it. You know what I mean? I don't think it's really fair. You know what I mean? Schizophrenia, that's a word that's being used a lot for individuals who are tested on. You know what I mean? But if the person who's being tested on isn't being told about any of this information, but it's obvious that the person who's being tested on knows he's being tested on, then that's where I'm looking at it as, okay, well, this is an invalid study. Because the person being tested on, if he knows he's being tested on, then perhaps that individual could go as far as, you know, not allowing their study to go the way they want, or whatever it is. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Because at the end of the day, it's like the individuals who would usually get tested for this, they're not acting out in the world as a simulation anyway. Organization of human capabilities, that plays a role too. All right. So, you know, in terms of the whole oriented engagement, there ain't nothing wrong with that. There ain't nothing wrong with that at all. You know what I mean? But sometimes now, and it's a big old project too. It's a big old project, this human Connectome project. I'm just talking about, you know, one portion of it, trying to get an idea of, you know, perhaps where they even have access to this person's brain behavior in the first place, you know. So this is where you have the community engagement in order to document the person's the test subject, right, his behavior. And I'm gonna get to that here in a second on why I definitely don't find that valid as well. I'm not gonna go as far as calling it like gaslighting or calling, you know what I mean, but it's like staged reactions. When someone, if a test subject already knows a staged reaction is about to happen, then how is that, I don't know, I don't find that research to really be valid, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But yeah, you know, that's basically what it is. You know what I mean? It'll also lead to, what's going on, man? Appreciate you joining again. You know what I mean? I'm talking about a different topic today. I'm going in on the Human Connectome project. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before. And this shouldn't take too long. I'm probably just going to go a couple more minutes. And a term called Machiavellianism, all right? So we're kind of diving into psychology here. We're diving into nanotechnology, human brain mapping. I never really heard of it either. You know what I mean? It's basically talking about medical imaging. We're talking about brain response. Brain response is almost like a human test subject. So I'm kind of learning as I go too. You know what I mean? Let me go ahead and say that too. I'm not here as if to tell people what to do or teaching. This is kind of like a TED talk. It's kind of like a topic talk. You know what I mean? And it also leads into Project Bluebeam, MK Ultra. Yeah, I've heard of MK Ultra before. I've heard of that before. I ain't got much information on that right now, but yeah, I've heard of that before. You know what I mean? And it's basically just a bunch of brain response and brain tracking. You know what I mean? Yes, Bluebeam, Project Bluebeam. You know what I mean? Bioscience I'm studying. You know? Yeah, no, I mean, I don't, you know, it's just something that's on the internet. You know what I mean? Anyone can Google that. You know, this ain't some information where I'm trying to get it out there. Well, I mean, even though it seems like that. But it's more so information that's already been put out there. I'm more so not even talking about Bluebeam. I honestly don't even have any information on that at all. I just know it can kind of correlate to that if we're speaking on the Human Connectome project, you know? You know, I don't feel like I should. You know, there's many scientists out there who's talking about, you know, the Human Connectome project. I'm more so correlating it with institutions where perhaps even I know some people who are involved with the National Institute of Health, the mental health and mental resources. You know what I mean? Research team. So I'm kind of, with this video, I'm kind of coming from the perspective of how are these research teams getting information to come up with terms called Machiavellianism and understand how someone could have a dark triad personality, which is what Machiavellianism is. So this term right here, and I've never heard of it. That's why I'm kind of talking about it. I found it. I thought it was pretty interesting. And I'm not even really here to defend anything. I'm more so kind of want to describe what it is and why I kind of, not that I disagree, but I'm kind of, roulette. I'm about to go inside. You have a favorite roulette number? Yeah, oh, roulette number? I don't know. Let's try, try 17. You know what I mean? I don't know why that number came to mind. So Machiavellianism, right? The main definition of this term is about individuals who were selfish yet charming, fake sympathy to get favors, perhaps can cause harm to get what they wanted, is what they're saying here. Deceitful, crafty with information, lacking compassion, unable to identify emotions or recognize other people, and depression and anxiety. These individuals who describe as Machiavellianism, they tend to also focus on themselves with personal interest as well. So and strategize whatever situations they want to do. So these individuals can sometimes pre-plan. Talking about narcissism, yeah, it kind of plays a role in narcissism. You know what I mean? Now, in terms of that word, you know, you see that word on Google. In terms of trying to describe someone who has like a personality disorder in real life, sometimes, you know, it's pretty easy to sometimes peep out someone, but sometimes someone could come off as that, just perhaps with whatever situation they're in, but they don't really have to be that type of person. You know what I mean? Now, the type of person I used to be, and more so the reason I'm even going live right now, is because I used to be, and I know how to admit it, I used to be a mood reflector. I used to be someone who would reflect moods. You know what I mean? And that could sometimes come off as narcissism. But back to this. How someone can be described as Machiavellianism and going as far as making articles on the situation to describe people that, you know, these group of people who are being described as Machiavellianism, these aren't people that you gather around and bring into some bioscience room and ask a bunch of questions, and that's how you come up with your conclusion. No. This is where I'm connecting the Human Connectome project. People are being researched illegally right now. That's why you hear people on the internet speak about surveillance, you know, and I'm gonna call it a different word. I'm not calling it that other word anymore. I'm gonna just call it oriented engagement. You know what I mean? But where I'm coming from is trying to understand how these research teams with the National Institute of Health, how do they come up with their conclusion, and how do they find their research valid, especially if the individual who's being tested on knows they're being tested on, or at least knows there's a situation going on where they're being watched, or watched or whatever. Everyone's being watched. You know, when you look up stuff on your phone, that immediately goes into a system where, okay, another person typed in that that's why you can have what do you call it, a certain amount of searches that someone searched a specific topic on Google, But with this whole Machiavellianism is like, how do you know someone is faking sympathy to get favors? How do you know that's faking sympathy? How do you know that's not an actual situation that person's got going on? And I want to say a shout out to Richard Moore. He's an individual who kind of talks about, he doesn't specifically talk about this into stuff, but he kind of talks more about the covert surveillance within the state he's in as well, But Machiavellianism, in order for this topic to even be researched and for you to come up with a conclusion, obviously it's a reaction and response situation. So it's not going to be a situation, like I said before, where you gather around a bunch of individuals in a room who agreed to be on the study. I'm pretty sure someone who, let's say someone is a Machiavellianism, I highly doubt they would agree to be, you wouldn't have to even agree to be tested on this. You're just going to be tested whether or not you know it. Okay? Extreme obsession and self-absorption. And even a specifying attributes and skills, you know what I mean? So this individual who's a Machiavellianism, they're describing this individual as someone who's just so fixated on their skills, their attributes. You know, we got to get more specific with this, because anyone can paint a picture. Anyone can cook food and every day pump that out. Let's say they're on IG and they pumping that out, and that's what they like to do. And every day they post a picture of them cooking. So are we going to call that Machiavellianism now, or what? Because I don't think that's Machiavellianism. If attributes and skills, if that's something you do and you're good at doing it and you want to show it, that ain't narcissism, bro. That ain't Machiavellianism, And they also include psychopathy here. So they're trying to say that a person who's got Machiavellianism has a dark triad personality disorder. Okay? Now, like I said before, I mentioned the whole mood reflecting. They didn't talk about mood reflecting. That's something I used to do. But it will definitely look that way, especially if you're putting up pictures, putting up videos that were pre-filmed. That's one thing I had to learn, if you make videos that were pre-filmed and then uploaded days later, that's going to confuse everyone, and that's something that, you know what I mean? So Machiavellianism, they're trying to explain it as a disorder where the person, they got like a personality disorder, but they're not aware of it. They're not really aware of perhaps causing harm to people. But this is where I'm coming in, and it's I'm not really defending anything, but what I'm trying to say is it just seems that people are just being so negatively affected by the littlest stuff in our world right now. And they feel like they got to go out of the way to find out why someone is the way they are, when they really don't. You don't have to do that. You don't have to go out of your way to come up with some research team to, monitor specific people and just be cool with that, just so you can get your study and treat people like a human lab rat, and just be a situation where, suck it up, champ. Well, come on, sport, just suck it up. Where, and it'd be a situation where it's almost kind of hoping for some sort of self-destruction. And this is where I'm kind of coming from, before. Because you'll have the word schizophrenia come up a lot. I'm just someone who shows it what it is, you know what I mean? I'm not schizophrenic, I'll tell you that. I had someone one time say, who just kept calling me on my channel, schizophrenia. It was probably just because of the way I was uploading the vids. But like I said before, when you're just someone who's got a different demeanor, you know what I mean? You come off as a different way. You're just being you. Perhaps you're just a little different. Sometimes you're just going to end up getting, attention, whether it's wanted, whether it's unwanted, whether it's just, different than your average Joe. You know what I'm saying? And there ain't nothing wrong with that either. I consider, people talk about bots. What's a bot? What's a bot? A bot, in my opinion, I'm a bot. A bot is just someone where you know what you're gonna do. You know what I mean? A bot is someone you have your own system going, So people talk about bots, or people like to talk about awareness, or I'm aware of this much, so I'm not a bot. At the end of the day, we're all kind of bots, you know what I mean? Because I only look at life in 3 different ways. You're eating, you're sleeping, you're loving, and just be happy, and we're all just living, and that's really all it is, you know what I'm saying? But in order for the Human Connectome project to be a situation in which you're analyzing human visualization from real people, and I'm talking community data mapping, sensor detecting, the nanotechnology, all right? The organization of human capabilities, and this is where I correlate it with predicting mind upload. So technically, this is why I kind of deleted my vids before, because it just wasn't clear enough. I don't, you know, I'm just kind of just talking about topics at this point that I find intriguing. This is real intriguing. Predicting mind upload. Predicting what someone is going to upload within their mind. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what people are doing now. Nowadays, people are just talking about what's on their mind. But Google and just scientists within the National Institute of Health find this to be actually disruptive and find it to be unhealthy for someone to self-diagnose their own self. And I agree with that. Sometimes I accidentally do that. You know, we all sometimes do that, you know. Coping mechanisms. So it's a study based on, it's like a contradiction I feel like they're contradicting themselves, where they're trying to gather up all this data from an individual's brain. It's a whole research team going out of their way, along with other agencies that could possibly involve the military, cybersecurity for sure, homeland security, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying this is what I'm doing. I'm saying it could possibly involve, you know, these agencies, fusion centers, and it's like data stealth capture. And yeah, it's basically just predicting mind upload. All right. So basically, I'm gonna end it on my summary here. Oh yeah. So with the whole Machiavellianism, this individual who's a Machiavellianism, a big part of being this definition is the individual lacking the future, what's that word? The future results that could be negative within what they're doing at the time. So this individual could perhaps lack principles and values because they're too lost on trying to get their point across. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it 100. I found this Machiavellianism stuff real intriguing. Now, the actual word, I found it 2 months ago. And some of it, I was like, is this like, are they like trying to talk about me? Because I never like wanted to be a mood reflector. Like my whole situation was never even trying to make people like understand me. Like that's something of Machiavellianism is what they're trying to say, is that they're so fixated on what they're doing and trying to have people understand what they're doing. So these individuals are described as neglecting to build cooperative relationships. Now this is where I'm going to come in, where I find this study research invalid. Like I said before, I'm definitely not even the only one, yo. There's been individuals on the internet since 2007, 2014, talking about, you know, not exactly what I'm talking about, but just surveillance, community, community engagement. That's what I'm gonna call it, engagement. If an individual knows that they're being studied on, or, you know, there's some goofy synchronizations going on, you know what I'm saying? Then their reaction to oriented engagement, for example, let's say there's a vicinity within where the test subject is regularly at. Let's say it's somewhere where they work out. And the research study team that is supposed to be researching this specific individual. Because remember, this is some real ass stuff I'm talking about. Individuals are being tested on in real life. Now, how they do it, I don't know. This is just a video. This is kind of just a perspective I'm coming from. All this information is not from me. You know what I mean? I got this all from Google, you know? But if an individual is aware of neural data technology and just all the technology they've got to do this simulation and programs within researching an individual, then I have no other way to look at it than just, this is just infiltration and just harassment of people, and it's an unethical human experimentation. Okay? And how they find these test subjects is based upon, you know, whoever the test subject used to know. All right? Perhaps that person knows of situations or involvements or experiences that person's gone through. All right? So usually a test subject is going to be someone who's been around a wide variety of people. You know, they probably got like different attributes, and but and sometimes the test subject, because the test subject is not as if they have to be a victim. Sometimes the test subject perhaps defaulted themselves into the situation by just being on the internet in the first place. You know what I mean? But the technology, it's getting really wild. It's getting really wild. Now, in terms of social media, I don't know how I can kind of correlate it with social media, because I don't know. And that's one thing I'm not going to do. But, you hear individuals talking about the brain connection to the phone. Now, I don't know anything about that, but obviously if you're an individual who's on the phone, you know what I mean? You're getting whatever information, even if you're just listening. At the end of the day, you're connected to that technology. You know what I mean? That nanotech sensor detector stuff has got to play a role. All right? That's where it comes with the whole human brain mapping. That's the only way, especially in 2022, where you're able to navigate someone's brain. Social media and what you're looking up on Google is going to play a big role. And the neuroscience community, the brain circuits to the brain behavioral studies. My bad, my bad. I be talking real fast sometimes. You know what I mean? But, it plays a role. This is where they come up with these theoretical studies, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's basically, I'm going to call it like an organization of human capabilities, all right? And they're going to incorporate like a bunch of different words with it. Narcissism, psychopathy, you know what I mean? Machiavellianism. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. Machiavellianism. Let me bring it down one more time, and I'm going to kind of end this, you know what I mean? Maybe go 40 minutes. This individual is basically an individual who's alone, and they're being described as someone who does not have emotional connection to the majority of the world. So they're being seen as deceitful because they're non-understandable. Now, I'm not a Machiavellianism. I refuse to be categorized in some word, you know what I mean? But I found it interesting because some of the points they're pointing at, I was like, I mean, sometimes that could come off that way. Now, if you're someone who's working a lot, why are you into this sort of thing? Because I've always been into psychology. When I first went to college, I was always into psychology, and that's basically it. I've always been into the study of people, and that's really it, man. I knew a girl back in like 2018, and we were talking one time, and she put me in my place. She put me in my place because I was a fool back then. Do you got podcasts? Nah, I don't. I honestly don't even know that many people who would watch me podcast at the moment, so that's why I'm kind of just going on the whim of this right now. But this girl, I was a fool because she was popular. She was a real popular girl, and I was insecure, bro. That's one thing about me. You're asking, why are you into stuff? Because I'm insecure. That's why I'm kind of going live right now, to really show who I am. I used to be an insecure person, bro, and she was real popular, so I was chilling with her. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, because I was insecure, like, damn, why would she, be chilling with me? Now, don't get me wrong, it ain't something like that, but, device overheating, I might have to stop here in a second. I told her, because she was talking about depression, I'm like, well, why are you depressed? Like, so many people, you're real popular, you shouldn't be depressed. And she was like, depression has nothing to do about knowing this amount of people, or are you for real? Like, you're going to tell me that I'm not depressed? And she's right, bro. Just because you know a bunch of people don't mean that you can't not be depressed, or just because you're alone doesn't mean you're depressed either, you know what I mean? Lately, I've been spending a lot of my time alone, but I like being around people too, so I'm kind of all over. But to end it there, you know what I mean? Long story short, in order for these researchers to do these tests and to test an individual, a human subject, especially for